trochanter means runner. Greater trochanter, the gluteal, two of the gluteal muscles insert into the greater trochanter. Now, the gluteus maximus, very strong muscle, and it's important in running, and it's important in stabilizing the hip. And we'll just mention here, and gluteal, I bet you know what that means. Guess what that means. What four-letter word does it mean?
Butt.
Butt. Lesser trochanter is the insertion point for a muscle that many people are unaware of unless they're deer hunters. What's the favorite muscle for deer hunting? Anybody else know? Hunters call it the back strap. And it is a muscle, if you look at here. So here is the lesser trochanter. There is a muscle that runs alongside the spinal cord and also comes down from the ilium and inserts into the lesser trochanter, and that's what allows you to flex the thigh. Very important muscle, and it's one that you will only see in the lab dissection if we open up the abdomen, because it is buried in the abdomen. And that back strap is called the iliopsoas, I-L-I-O-P-S-O-A-S. Ilio because part of it originates from the ilium on the inside, and part of it originates at the rear of the abdominal cavity. It was very surprising to me when I first learned about that muscle, that there's such an important, strong muscle that is buried deep in the abdomen that works your thigh. It allows you to kick the thigh forward. That's flexing the thigh. All right. The shaft is the long part. And at the distal end, there's a lot of knotty stuff. Portion here, the patella is going to run on that. That's called the patellar surface. And what do you call these knuckle-like things here?
Condyles.
Condyles. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, I'll say, okay, name this feature here. Now it takes two words to name it correctly. It is a condyle. What condyle is it?
Medial.
Medial. How do you know that?
It's towards the middle.
Because the head's medial. Okay. These are the little hints at figuring out. Medial. So what's this one out here?
Lateral.
Lateral. Okay. So those are. We're going to label this. What do you think that bump is called right there?
Where?
You can feel it. That bump right here, it doesn't move when you flex the knee. It's upon the condyle. Medial left condyle.
Where's it at on that bone right there?
Pardon?
Where's that at on that bone?
Medial epicondyle right here. Actually, I was pointing at the lateral epicondyle. I should have been pointing at this one.
So it's-
Error. I
so
just
it's
grabbed
above
it
the
twisted.
lateral?
Oh, you betcha. Where would it be? back we want to talk about? All right. Now, let's look at the back side. So, posterior views. This will be a little quicker. And here's the difference you're going to see right away. The two trochanters, greater and lesser trochanters, are joined together, and this is called the intertrochanteric crest. Okay. It's a long name, but you can figure it out. Inter means what? Between. Trochanteric. Intertrochanteric is between the two trochanters, and a ridge of bone is called a crest. So this intertrochanteric crest. I hope you can understand my emphasis on word stems, and because as we learn them, we can build up more and more complex but descriptive terms. Now these look like true condyles here. On the back side, look how prominent they are. So this is the medial condyle. And as you go down, there is a rough area of bone, a ridge, called the linea aspera. Linea, line. Aspera means rough. This is an attachment point for muscles, and it widens at this point here. This is called the popliteal surface. For you, right? We might have learned this on that very first day when we were talking about areas of the body. Popliteal means back of the knee. Now, there is a What is a trench? Fossa. And this is a trench between the condyles. So what is the name of that? Of this fossil? Intercondylar fossa. And there is an eminence that comes up there. That's going to be important when we talk about cruciate ligaments. So intercondylar eminence is this little ridge. Let's draw that baby in there. Actually, that's a ridge. A ridge or it's a ridge. It's not an eminence, that's on the tip. All right. Now, lastly, I want to talk about fractured hips. Yeah.
It does say imminence in your notes.
Is that on the tibia?
Oh,
See
it
that?
is on the tibia.
My brain jumped the tracks to
The next
but I
one.
tried.
Okay.
So it's not an eminence, but in all likelihood, if you want to know the truth of the matter, I probably will not ask you this, but I do. It is going to be important to know that this intercondylar fossa is critical because that's where the cruciate ligaments are that often cause this problem. Okay, now, broken hip. Broken hip actually isn't really, it's broken femur. Either in the neck or just below the trochanters or in a young person because there is a epicondyle cartilage here that might fracture there. So when they say a broken hip, they're really talking about either here, here, or here. The good news is in young people, their bones heal fairly well, and they often will pin them back together because you can see the neck takes a whole lot of stress. It's very poor prognosis when an elderly person breaks a hip because they're not good at repairing bone, and it often means like, okay, the end is here because they're now going to be immobilized. When you become immobilized, everything starts to break down. So if you hear of an elderly person that breaks a hip, give them a lot of sympathy.
So when you break your femur, where does it break?
Oh, could be anywhere.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, I totally skipped over fractures. So, suppose it's just partially across. It's not totally separated. This is called a green stick fracture. I think those are, I don't know, they were in my notes.
At least he goes over less bones. Less bones for the post on Tuesday.
Green stick, meaning it's still together. And green stick, if you're going to have a fracture, that's the best kind. It's going to ache like crazy, but at least it's properly aligned, and it'll heal together quite well. I bet it's the same thing. I believe that is. Now, if it's totally separated, I'm not sure there's a term for that. It's a fracture. If it's fractured and there's pieces of bone, a good friend of mine was loading wood in her truck, and actually her significant other tossed this log, and the log crushed her hand against the side of the truck, and this little finger, the x-ray just shows all these pieces of bone. That's called comminuted. Don't do that.
What is it called? What?
What'd you say it's called?
Comminuted fracture.
Comminuted.
You know what, could somebody just look up in the index for bone fractures, because there's a page here. And you can, I could go through this, but somebody else found it better. Okay, even this is not as bad as this fracture. I didn't draw this. There's your skin. What's that called?
External fracture.
Compound fracture.
Oh.
What's so bad about a compound fracture?
Enzymes.
Bacteria say, oh, we could live here. At least these other fractures are in a sterile environment. And a compound fracture is like really bad. And here's the problem. And the issue of, did anybody find it in the book? 201? 200 and 201. This is back to the second verse. capacity.